Welcome. r/Prorevenge. After a lifetime of abuse, I burned everything down and got what I wanted. I don't want to make this too disturbing, but read at your own risk. And it's really long. TLDR at the end. Throw away because people know my other account. Part 1. The childhood. My parents have always had a toxic and mutually abusive relationship. Physical fighting, screaming matches, destruction of each other's property, and then a short honeymoon phase. I witnessed it all. It was a cycle. Not only did they abuse each other, but my mother would physically abuse us with regular beatings and my father would neglect us, allowing her to hurt us. We, my siblings and I, would see the worst of it on weekends. They would have events that lasted days, and often argued well into the late hours. My mother would even take us from home out of spite for my father, and have us stay with her abusive family members for days and sometimes weeks. This, of course, would interrupt school, and put us behind other students. I would often come to school tired, after being kept awake by an incident between them. In addition to that, I was prevented from building meaningful friendships outside of school, because of how strict my parents were. I wasn't even allowed to take part in extracurricular activities, because they insisted they were meaningless, and would corrupt me. Part 2. A child's revenge. I became resentful and angry. I hated that they would torment me and my siblings, and then could cuddle and be love-a-dove with each other during the honeymoon periods of the cycle. It disgusted me. By the time I reached my early teenage years, I made a decision to sabotage them at any chance I got. It was easy, since I had been watching their patterns for years. I stole money from my father in small amounts. I destroyed emotionally valuable items from each of them. I threw out food they were saving as treats for themselves. I found receipts of purchases they were hiding from each other, and left them out for the other to find. I destroyed clothing. I made each of them think I was siding with them after arguments, getting them to talk to me, and then took their dirty secrets back and forth, to increase their distrust of each other. The funny part was, they never suspected it was me. I was just repeating the same behaviors they had already been doing, so they always assumed it was the other one. Part 3. The next level revenge. As the years passed, I knew I would be leaving the household when I was an adult, so I expanded on my plan. I knew that my younger siblings would suffer in a household with both of them together, especially after I left. I had been sexually abused in childhood by one of my mother's family members. My father and siblings didn't know, but my mother did. She knew what this person was, and left me alone with him multiple times. She hinted to me that, if my father ever found out about anything her family had done, I would be responsible for breaking up the family. That was how she got me to keep quiet about all of the abusive things her family members had done to us. Between the two of them, she was the worst. My father was really just neglectful and willfully ignorant of the deep levels of abuse she put us through. He thought that his role as a father was to go to work, bring home the money, and relax. I knew it would take something powerful to make him step up. I also knew that, if they were exposed to the authorities, there was a chance my siblings would get separated, or be forced to live with worse family members whose evil deeds couldn't be proven. I waited all the way until a few months, before I was prepared to leave the household. Then I told my father what had happened to me. I told him all the secrets my mother had kept from him regarding how her family would abuse us whenever she took us to visit and stay with them. My siblings were never sexually abused, but they were beaten and starved. I told him I was only telling him this now because I was planning on moving out, and I needed him to wake up and protect my siblings after I left. I told him there wasn't any hope of saving anything with me, but there was still time for the others to still have a good life. He cried. It had the desired result. The news traveled through the grapevine and the family quickly. All of their secrets were out. It caused a divide and shook the foundation of everything. People who had married into my mother's family took their kids away quietly. The family's reputation was destroyed in the religious community as well. I got tearful calls from some of them begging me to forgive and forget. Some accused me of lying, or accused me of enjoying it, and even asked me to take it back. I had successfully set my family on fire. I left on schedule. I cut off contact with my mother. I had extreme limited contact with my father. I talked to my siblings constantly. My father stepped up. He cut my mother's family off and didn't allow them to see my siblings anymore. He divorced my mother a while later, once he had the means to take the youngest siblings away and live alone with them. My mother has extremely limited custody. The older ones had already moved out by that time. Part 4. The result. I now am living without any family in another state. I'm getting mental health treatment and living my life the best way that I can. I still talk to my siblings. They kept me updated on what's going on. My father is really taking care of the youngest ones, and he helps out the older ones when they need it. They have a far better life than I had because he cares now. We don't talk that much about what happened and what I did for them. We still have a bond, and that's all I want. Based on all you wrote, I was going to say, be careful of these behaviors you've acquired. Even if you did it for a good reason doesn't mean those pathologies won't affect you. But after reading everything, you do sound like you're aware of the precarious position you are in, and maybe you will be okay. People can react passively or actively to trauma in a way that either causes harm to yourself or others. As long as you're not setting yourself into these types of reactive defensive behaviors and are actively processing how your past impacts you in the present and the role you are playing in this, I think that means yeah. I feel sorry for you and your siblings, and it's a shame that it took several years of bullshit and abuse for your father to wake up and realize the nightmare of a life that you and your siblings have because of your mother. I truly wish you and your siblings the best moving forward, and I hope that your mother realizes one day, when she's miserable and alone, that she's a complete piece of shit and it's all her fault. Damn good job, Op. I'm not gonna lie, the level of secrecy around the child abuse and the destroyed reputation in the religious community sounds eerily like my childhood growing up as a Jehovah's Witness. I'm so glad you took matters into your own hands and helped your younger siblings. Sucks when you have crappy family. Been there, done that. Most of my abuse was mental, but that opened up to some other stuff, and even though I'm over 40 now, some things can make life more difficult to deal with on a daily basis. At least your siblings will have a chance at a better life. I finally got to the point where I got away from all of my family around 20. Constant infighting and causing issues was all around. It was oftentimes like the Hatfields and McCoys, but it was one half vs the other, and the lines were always shifting. Oddly enough, most of mine are dead and gone now. Grandfather and grandmother, mother, one aunt, and one uncle, with the other uncle in prison over meth. The rest don't seem to care, and that is just fine with me. I can't shed a tear for them at all. Good luck with your life and hopefully things get better. If you are like me, when you do find someone to be with, their loss will be much harder to take. You will also find that it's a lot harder to trust people, so finding that person to be with won't be easy. I lost a son who would have been 18 tomorrow at 9 days old, and honestly don't remember much from after that point for about a year. I lost my wife a year and 4 months ago, and am slowly getting to a better place, but it's not easy at all. There were so many times I wanted to, but I know him. I know how he thinks. I timed it for right before I would be able to leave the household for a very good reason. The most he would have done, if I was still under his roof when I told him, would be to cut contact with her family. He would have attempted to keep up the family image he built. In the religion we followed, building and leading a family meant you were a successful man. He wouldn't have been able to admit his failure. But I didn't want my parents together. I didn't want my mother to have a place anymore. I wanted her to feel the loss of her children and husband. I wanted my father to feel the pain of losing a child, so that he would choose his children in the end, to avoid that pain again. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit like. If you would like to see more, feel free to subscribe.